Welcome to Season 2, Video 3 of the Overanalyzing and Brain Train series. No, that's not confusing at all. Why do you ask? If you're new here, the goal of this project is to analyze the series, pointing out hidden details, small moments, slight inconsistencies, and giving you all my unsolicited thoughts along the way, in the only way I know how. A highly edited YouTube video. In case you're really new, this video is technically the third Overanalyzing video I've made, as I've already covered books 1 and 3 in separate videos. Go check those out by the way if you haven't. And in case you're really new, Train is a series that follows a girl named Tulip who gets trapped in a seemingly endless train. Nah, I'm just joking. If you know what the series is about, then go watch it all and come back. Now before we get started, for simplicity's sake, I'll be referring to this character as their chosen name throughout this video, being Lake, as opposed to MT, which is what she is called 99% of the show's runtime. And unsimply, this character will be referred to by his given name, which is Alan Dracula. And yes, I will be saying that full name every time because I love it and he's perfect. Now I know you want me to get on with the analysis already.
So impatient. Just watch.
So here we go. We open this book in what looks to be a bunny foundry car. Interesting combo. This might be relatively soon after Lake's departure from the chrome car, as she is still seen wearing Tulip's old clothes, and the mirror from the multi-tool is still attached to her arm, which is where her prime last left it. We see that the metallic chain that she got from the bank car returns here as she spray paints it black, proving my point from last episode that if the Flex were prepared, they could have 100% jumped out of that thing. MT, get away from that chain. You literally just pointed out that it's reflective. The Flex could jump out and grab you right now. This chain is obviously meant to represent Lake's defiance as she continuously wears it around her wrist for the rest of the show. Also, are we not going to question why she ransacks this foundry car if she wasn't even going to use the forge? You could have spray painted this chain anywhere, and if you want to argue it was just for this power tool she uses to pierce her ears, then okay, but there must have been an easier way to either find this tool or get her ears pierced. Are we sure Lake didn't stumble across the mall car before the season began? Because her whole outfit just seems to be straight from Hot Topic. There's absolutely no way her body reached that wheel. It was like multiple of hers down, let alone the fact that she was able to have her feet cling to that ladder with absolutely zero footholds. She definitely should have fallen off and fell straight into that wheel. Guess she'd be doing the Flex job for them. Cutting her hair on the wheel also left her with this little eyebrow slit. She is truly in her rebellious teen phase. Not only does the season have my favorite opening sequence out of any season, it also has my favorite end credit music. In the intro sequence, we get a glimpse of a few cars, like the Golden Winged Snakes car and the Kaiju car, which we see in Season 3 of the show and in the train documentaries respectively. We also get a glimpse of what looks like to be a jellyfish car and a carrot dance car, possibly related to the monster dance car. Guess both Lake and Tulip share a disdain for this kind of thing. Lake really ruined this carrot's day when she refused to dance. Look at how sad he is when she walks away. I've never noticed this before, but there are indeed denizens in the doily car, which the wiki labels as crochet people. Crazy how they both just passed this wanted sign of Lake if they didn't recognize her when she walked past them a few seconds later. We see One-One's introduction to the train for the first time. Here he explains the point of the train along with what you need to do in order to get home. This will later be used as a key plot point as to why the Apex believes Amelia is the true conductor and that One-One is the fake. We also see the lunch lady Mrs. Grimm, who Jesse will reference a couple episodes later in the map car.
That sounds more like a problem the lunch lady needs fixed.
Do you think Mrs. Graham is on the train?
The video version of One-One's hand snaps up randomly. He must have gotten a shoddy editor to work on this very important video for the train. Should have hired me.
By watching this recording, you've agreed to release the train of any liabilities.
No, Lake, I wanted to hear the rest of that. After watching this video, Lake can be seen staring at a reflection in her hand where a number would be if she were human, possibly an early sign of her desperation to get a number.
Batch of passenger memory tapes.
Hey look, it's the obligatory Grey DeLisle cameo in every anime project to ever exist on the planet. With all these tapes floating around, seemingly being sold through whatever black market exists on the train for people like this woman and the cat, it raises a pretty concerning question about who is stealing them from the tape car. From everything we've seen, those tapes are supposed to stay confined to that car. So does the train have another rogue group running around rampant like the Apex, except instead of worshipping Amelia, they're just robbing One-One blind? And honestly, who was even buying random passengers' memory tapes in the first place? Actually, I spoke too soon. The editing here is a bit weird and fast when the Flex, named Mason Sieve by the way, jump out of the broken eyeglass. The names on the tape turn into random swirl lines here.
Right there?
Snitch. Why didn't Lake just climb up this obvious ladder on the right side of the alley instead of this fragile pole? Are those the orbs that create things on the train? Maybe I was wrong before when I said they never appeared again besides that one time in book 3. They definitely look similar, but could just be weirdly shaped vegetables.
There's no escape, Sliver. We got you cornered.
I'm pretty sure this car is the exact opposite of cornered. From my perspective, she could literally be anywhere. You can actually see a faint outline of Alan Dracula after he uses his camouflage. One question though, why did the leaf in his mouth camouflage too?
Nope, your suit is compromised.
Oops. Oh, yeah. Thanks, buddy. This tear gets too big. I'm a goner.
Not sure why this line was added about the hole in the suit. They mention if the hole gets too big, he would be a goner. From what we know from the Chrome Car episode, any amount of skin showing connects him back to the mirror world, but without a mirror world around, there's nothing to connect him back to. However, this isn't the issue. The issue is that every time we see the suit compromised, it would just lead to death anyway, because no one could survive being cut in half and blown up. So this simply feels like a line to get the flex off leaks back instead of actually meaning something for the season as a whole. Guys, hey, look behind you. Her legs would literally be poking out right there. It would be so obvious. Why'd you go up on that tree for leaves? There are literally millions below your feet. Hey look everyone, it's Ashley Johnson's obligatory friend named Jessie in everything she's in. At this point, I'm convinced it's just auto-included in her contract whenever she signs on to a project. She also seems to love voicing redheads.
But if he was anyone's dear, he'd be my dear, because I hung out with him longer, like 2 days.
Wait, can you count? It has quite literally been one day. We saw the cycle of the sun. You can't count today as a day spent with the deer because you just woke up and he was gone.
Have you been getting 2 dinners?
No, of course not. It's morning and Jessie just said he had been hanging out with them for about an hour. Once again, the deer has obviously not been getting 2 dinners.
Good idea, Chrome Girl.
Why do both Jessie and Tulip automatically resort to chrome to describe this look? I feel like both mirror and metal are much more common synonyms to describe it. You know how I said in the last video that episode 4 of the first season had the most abrupt ending? Well, we may have a new contender. Lake has a reoccurring bit where she likes to flick Jessie on the forehead. Reminds me of Grace next season and how she loves to flick Simon's hair. I'll point it out whenever it happens.
We're on top of a tree.
Now why would Jessie have contact information for a bunch of random animals on the train? It's not like they have phones or Wi-Fi to talk to him. With the acknowledgement of Jessie having a phone, it makes me wonder why we never saw Tulip pull hers out. I mean, we know she has one. It is interesting how both the entrance and exit doors to this car are on top of the tree. Usually the train doesn't allow you to just skip the gimmick of the car entirely. The discoveries that the families on the family tree have a past makes me wonder if they truly existed in the real world and only after death became a part of the Infinity Train, or if they are solely train creations with a built-in backstory. If the former, this is a pretty crappy place for your soul to rest for eternity. I really don't mean to break down this car's entire concept, but with the nature of family trees, technically everyone should not have the same last name unless literally no one changed it. Especially on the woman's side, as back in the day, women would almost certainly change their last name to match their husband's. Right when the arguing stops, so too does the growth of the branches, indicating that the branches grow because of the fighting. The Trundleshanks are depicted as a lot more country than the Gillicuddies, who in comparison are much more proper and put together. This is represented in their name cards, as the Trundleshanks are all written in caps while the Gillicuddies are all written in cursive. When the Gillicuddy quadruplets say,
Get off our branch!
you can actually see when the camera pulls back that indeed the branch Jessie is on is connected to their side of the tree. This is the only time we see someone from either family control the tree's behavior. However, we can assume that they all share this property as they mention helping Jessie get down the tree. We see how fighting makes the branches grow and slowly starts to consume Jessie, making him become part of the tree, but I wonder why this is. As far as we know, the two families are part of the tree by the train's design and not out of being passengers, which would then make it odd for Jessie to just randomly join their family tree. Would it then become the Gillicuddy Trundleshank Kosei family tree? This is also an early example of the train not viewing Lake as a person, as she does not get overtaken by wood like Jessie does.
I'm gonna be made out of wood? Everybody at school call me Pinocchio.
Well, you fit right in with your friend who has metal skin. 1. How does Jessie not feel his body being freed from the branches and placed on the floor? And 2. I noticed it so you have to too. The animation on Jessie turning into wood is constantly wonky, but especially as it comes off his body, you can see some weird stuff going on with his hands.
Fated to be a tree boy.
You're a terrible tree.
Hey, it's doing its best.
Wow, Jessie out here really defending a tree. Maybe I do understand why the train chose him. We all know Lake is extremely heavy, right? We see how she sinks in the water, causes dents when landing, breaks scales, and is literally made of metal. So in saying this, I understand how Alan Dracula can support her. I mean, he is a superpowered deer. But how does Jessie hold her here? He must work out.
Hey, you work out?
I mean, I guess if Tulip could lift her, albeit strained, Jessie certainly could. Gilda and Herbert really married? Gilda and Herbert really married? Ruined both their... Why can't I do this one? Gilda and Herbert really married, ruined both their families' lives for eternity, and then had the audacity to combine their last names and become the Trundlecuddies. Lake here says,
Bleat once if you're okay, twice if you're hurt.
for so long I thought she was saying blink, referencing the laser eyes from the first episode, and I thought it didn't make much sense. but instead she says bleat with a T. Bleating is actually when an animal like a deer makes a high-pitched soft call. No way did Jesse and Lake make it back up to Alan Dracula. The green car the group comes from was one of the train cars seen in the Train documentary shorts, with the Alan Dracula-shaped hole in the wall also being visible in that short.
Oh, I have my receipt from Gas and Dog.
The gas station Jesse mentions, Gas and Dog, is actually the same gas station we see in Season 4, Episode 1 with Ryan. This episode is a great example of Infinity Train using its cars and characters to advance Jesse's story, as the entire car is about Jesse being told what to do by Marcel in order to fill the map, while also having Lake tell him what to do in order to get his number down. All of this adds to his problem of doing what others want him to do, even at his own expense. Lake being forced to tag along is yet another example of the train not viewing her as a person. She is forced to follow Jesse as he is the passenger with the number.
Is this thing working right?
Is your arm working right? Jesse's swim team is most likely named Pupfish, as that is the name embroidered on the back of his Letterman jacket. The team may also be from Arizona, as the emblem has that state's flag on it. The giant A on the front would also imply this fact.
I guess you need to talk more about sports or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There's no way these two are that naive. The sail was originally on the west side of the compass boat, but now it is on the north side. Jessie asked Lake for paper, and she really went through the effort of pulling it out of her pocket just to shove it back in and lie straight to his face. Truly a master of deception. Jesse could probably see this happen too. I mean, he was right there the whole time. Jesse really stopped mid-swim to switch strokes just to take longer finishing with freestyle, and he was literally like right there. Hey, at least he got his number down, I guess. Judging on how the map makes everything bigger when transitioning, this door should probably be like 20 feet tall. Jesse's hair is wet after swimming. Does that mean the paper water is still wet?
Wow, you saved Alan Dracula. He says thank you.
Lake used the name Alan Dracula for the first real time, although it isn't a moment of panic when she needed something to deflect to. This is an example of a car which I feel like has to be reset. As it stands by the end of the episode, the car just becomes a normal landscape car with no map-related elements, so the only way for it to be its original concept would be a car reset. Another thing I'm thinking about is what if a passenger went the opposite way on the train? This would be a car where I question the logic because the door doesn't exist until Jesse makes it. I think the only explanation would be that no matter which direction you enter, there's always only one entrance door and one exit door for these kinds of cars. Alan Dracula's head is randomly separated from his body here when previously it was connected, even while spinning. The Flex have to jump through the reflections of the water here because, like Lake, they will sink if they try going into the water normally. This is the first and only car we see that locks the entrance door from the outside once you go inside, and because you can't leave without kicking the toad, it kinda makes this episode a pseudo-bottle episode. I love the moral dilemma this car brings as they force the characters into a situation where neither can or want to kick the toad in order to escape. Lake can't kick it because then that would prove the Flex right in Jesse's eyes and that she truly is a criminal, and Jesse can't kick it because then he will be doing what Lake asked him to do and kicking the defenseless toad when he didn't want to, actively regressing in his problem. The existence of the night and day cycle in this car makes me wonder if all the cars on the train share the same cycle. Across multiple cars in the show, we see suns depicted, even specifically in this season like the family tree in the mall cars. So does all denizens live with the same day and night cycle? When Jesse pulls out his phone, you can see him squinting to show how hard it is to see a bright screen in the dark. It's subtle, but it's a nice touch. We see that Jesse went through some of the same cars Tulip did, like the duck car and the beach car. He encounters a grape denizen in the second photo, and a similar-looking species of denizen returns in book 4 of the show in the party car episode. Since that book takes place in the past, this could potentially be the same denizen, just older. It looks to live in the green car we saw earlier, but we later see it in the green room at the party. Both share this all-green color scheme, so there has to be a connection there. This character who pushes Jesse's brother Nate down the hill is named Troy. He's the same Troy Snooterly Banks who is referenced in episode 2.
So instead of being Troy Banks, now he's Troy Snooterly Banks.
Jesse is seen wearing different outfits throughout the photos, which proves in this specific animated universe that characters don't wear the same outfit every day. Infinity Train's concept, however, of trapping people on a train allows for the characters to continually wear the same outfits. And if you're about to argue, will Jesse wear the same outfit in the video that he is wearing currently, you'd be right. But he tells us a few minutes later that he never got to speak to Nate after this incident, meaning he boarded the train the same day, which would result in him not being able to switch clothes. Wouldn't it be funny if Jesse and Steve went into a whole duel montage here like they do in book 4?
All you have to do is leave that phone out till morning so we can pop through the screen reflection and arrest MT.
If the Flex could hop out of that phone whenever there's light, then why couldn't they have just jumped out anytime after Lake and Jesse met? We really saw how Jesse has been taking photos of their trip. Also, earlier Lake said she didn't have super strength, but then here she proceeds to break an entire phone with her bare hand. So I think she's lying.
Technically, I am a criminal, but I didn't do anything wrong.
I don't know, Lake. You did try to trap Tulip in a mirror world forever and leave her for dead. Saying you did nothing wrong is a bit of a stretch.
But your body's reflective. Can't they jump out of you?
Ow! People can't jump out of people. Come on, that's stupid.
Makes me wonder if the Flex could jump out of a reflective denizen like Kez, for example. The answer here would be if Lake is referring to only denizens from the Chrome car or denizens as a whole. Jesse really out here with these 200 IQ plays. So if you took the Toad from the Toad car and the door is now locked on both sides, that makes this car an impenetrable roadblock for any passengers attempting to journey through this section of the train. The only ways to fix this is either resetting the car, or the car itself is somehow taken out of the train's circulation, which we've never seen happen before but could definitely be a possibility based on the way the cars move around.
Goodbye!
Fun fact, Alan Dracula's name is never said this episode. Neither is the word deer. The Parasite car? Really? That's almost as bad as the Past car. Almost.
Alan Dracula!
Lake finally calls the deer Alan Dracula here for the first time without any stipulations. Lake may be dissimilar from Tulip, but they both share their terrible singing. The ice that Alan Dracula sneezes out should probably be reflective, thus making it possible for the Flex to jump through. However, at the beginning of the episode, the two directly continue their talk from last episode about how reflections work, so it's possible Mason and Steve are still trapped in the Toad car.
Tulip's gone, got in a bad jet ski accident, or was eaten by a seal or something.
Jesse making a joke about Tulip's jet ski accident death seems to be a subtle reference to Owen Dennis and how whenever anyone asks him the future of one of the characters, he states they died in absurd ways.
Sorry you both died in such embarrassing ways.
I'm somewhat confused when Perry jumped into Alan Dracula's mouth. He states that he hopped on in the mud, but Alan Dracula's mouth never goes below the surface.
Hello, APD!
Jesse calls him APD here, which stands for Alan Perry Dracula. At some point in the episode, Perry speaks from inside Alan Dracula's open mouth, but then at other points he speaks through Alan Dracula's mouth like the deer is talking. There doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason for this. The runway car is not so subtly referencing the competition show RuPaul's Drag Race, with the contestant BB Zahara Bennett voicing the character Sashay. The denizens are different variations of clothing, like ties, scarves, and hats. Jeremy would love this place.
Trilby? I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's a hat, Min.
You think this bouncer would get along with Nigel? There are many different variations of the food pyramid, but this specific version follows the food guide pyramid introduced by the United States Department of Agriculture in 1992. It has wheat and grain at the bottom, fruits and vegetables in the middle, dairy and meat at the top, and finally at the tip is sweets, all which we see depicted here. After the food pyramid was changed to the My Pyramid layout, which potentially means this car was created before 1992. And in case you're for some reason enthralled in the history of the food pyramid, today we use the My Plate model. I bet you didn't think we'd be doing a deep dive into the food pyramid in this video, but here we are. Perry turned Alan Dracula's hand into a metal clamp here, which would probably technically be reflective. Also, how was he eating? According to the wiki, Jesse's original name was meant to be Miles, which made the writers have to switch up his intro for the runway scene last minute to fit with the new name. The old name is referenced here again when Perry calls Jesse Giles.
Help me, Giles and Empty!
I'm sure Ashley Johnson loved this change, had to memorize fewer names. This moment of Lake rushing back down the runway may seem insignificant at first and just played off as a joke, but it's actually an example of a person going the opposite way through the car, being from back to front, proving that the exit door and entrance doors stay the same and does not change depending on which direction you move on the train. This is further reinforced next season when Simon re-enters the Cat's Chalet from the back door, which is the same one we saw the group exit from. However, we never saw the exit door to this specific car, unlike in this episode. Alan Dracula turns to ice for a split second here, once again being reflective, meaning the Flex could have jumped through if they were fast enough. Alan Dracula sneezes outside the pyramid, but when Perry lands, he lands inside the pyramid. I'm going to defend this episode, because a common complaint I see with this episode specifically is that it feels redundant and that it could have been swapped out for something more interesting, but I'm here to say that you are all wrong. Now, I can't defend that another episode's concept would have been more interesting, as that would provide an infinite amount of unknown quantities, but I can defend what we know, which is this episode in particular. To start off, the Parasite car may be the most bonding we see from Lake and Jesse throughout the whole season, as right before this they become friends, and soon after Jesse gets yeeted from the season. A complaint I've seen against this episode is that Jesse's lesson here about not harming others for his own benefit feels repetitive, since he already struggled with it in the previous episode when he didn't want to kick the toad in order to exit the car. However, that moment isn't a full resolution, because he ultimately was about to resort to kicking it. This episode pushes that idea further by forcing him to actually follow through on making the right choice, even when it's harder, ironically meaning he has to kick Perry out, pun very much intended. At its core, the issue we're dealing with is Jesse's lingering willingness to hurt others for his own gain or status, which this episode more fully confronts. Plus, the other reason it's good is that it's the only episode in this season in which Alan Dracula is the main focus. Without this episode, Alan Dracula would just be another mute side character like... Well, actually, so far we have no one to compare him to because all the other companions speak, but he would just be in the background. With this, the writers behind the show even were divisive over the episode, with some finding it to be too character-focused with not enough plot. Ultimately, they decided to keep it due to its silliness and joyful energy. As the supervising director Madeline Corporal said when referencing the fact of needing a fun episode like this in order to feel the emotional weight at the end, you're not going to feel anything if you don't have anything to feel about. So I don't want to hear anyone say this episode was done and never again. This episode is also unique as it is one of the only episodes to have its main focus be split between multiple cars, in this case 3. The other episodes that do this are the grid car, the black market car, the mall car, and the Canyon of the Golden Winged Snakes car, with this episode and the musical car being the only episodes to heavily feature 3 cars. Remember, this isn't counting the episodes like in early season 1 when Tulip was shown doing a speedrun through many cars. The facade of the Lucky Cat Carnival is actually a huge Maneki-Neko, which is a figure said to bring good luck, wealth, and customers, all of which makes sense for the context of this car as well as being the cat's entire MO. However, the cat is French, so running a Japanese-style business seems a bit odd. The coin in the giant cat's hand reads 10 million ryo, in which ryo was an old Japanese unit of gold, in this case used to represent great fortune. Also, the cat isn't waving, it is beckoning customers. There's a sign at the front which reads exit in Japanese, possibly pointing passengers in the direction of the exit door. The cat decoration is also making the same face Samantha made last season. I question where the Badger denizens live in the Lucky Cat car. From the brief glimpse we get of the outside of the car, all that seems to exist out there is a plain of grass. Adding on to this, did Samantha create the carnival because it's shaped like a cat, so you would assume she did? The only other explanation would be that it was already there when she arrived, and she simply took it over. But why would it have been there in the first place?
Like, why do your blood cells look like tiny inner tubes?
Because they're in a liquid and that's how they float?
They don't... Wait, is that true?
This is entirely false. The Infinity Train team wanted to come up with something that sounded like it could be true, but is definitely incorrect. Blood cells are actually shaped like this for maximum efficiency in transporting oxygen through the body as well as for gas exchange. Additionally, they are very flexible, which allows them to squeeze through tight spaces. Okay, science class over. Isn't it odd that the claw machine we see has the same green lighting as the numbers, exit doors, and title for the show? It's a weird detail that is never explained or even referenced. This claw machine was also used to promote the season. In November 2019, the official Infinity Train website was updated with this interactive claw machine minigame in which fans had to solve it in order to unlock the trailer for Season 2. It's the return of the Toad, and with his grand return comes his name Terrence, mirroring Lake's own turn of giving herself a name when she didn't have one before. And look at this character development. The Toad didn't have a name before, and instead of naming him Dracula automatically, Jesse allowed him to name himself Terrence. Even though literally 2 episodes earlier, Terrence says,
"Thank you kindly for saving me from an existentially nightmarish existence. I won't soon forget it,"
basically owing his life to them, he then proceeds to hand them both cards worth only 2 points each. These people literally saved you from literal hell, and this is the best you could do? Seems to me he forgot pretty fast. Due to this episode having a high volume of references, I'm going to rapid fire a few to get through them in a reasonable amount of time. First, we see the return of Nancy from the Straight Up Italy car in episode 4. Then khaki bottoms with an ear missing after the events of episode 8. He's also holding the squishy water toy, must have gotten a replacement. Afterwards, Grage, the guy from the Crystal Car, appears, playing a game called Dance or Else, definitely a reference to the Crystal Car's musical elements. This scene also features probably Infinity Train's most well-known error, with the editor timer being visible in the top right-hand corner of the screen. This was later removed in reruns, but because the only way to watch the show now is through digital media, it is still visible when watching the episode. Most of the prizes you can win at the carnival aren't references to anything, sadly. The only ones I could find were the cross-eyed ducks from episode 3 of the show, as well as the wizards from episode 2.
Tulip, what are you still doing on the train? You've given yourself quite the makeover, kitten.
There's no way the cat saw Lake and thought she was Tulip. She has metal skin, needles for hair, and is wearing a completely new outfit. The woman has been on the train for over a century and doesn't realize this obvious different appearance.
A reflection? I've never seen one of your kind in the prime world.
The fact she knows about reflections, however, shows her extensive knowledge about the train, and her saying she has never seen one of Lake's kind in the prime world also indicates that she has been to the Chrome Car at some point. A nice detail is that Lake only knows the cat from Season 1, Episode 7 and before, meaning she wasn't with Tulip when the cat showed her Amelia's tape or helped her get to the engine, leading to this tense interaction. A turtle from the unfinished car, along with a Corgi denizen, can be seen very briefly here when the cat goes on the microphone. They might have linked up after Atticus and Aloysius' deal from Episode 6. With the return of Randall also comes Lake's acknowledgement that she has been getting less points. But when doing this, they didn't pick easy numbers for us to see this happen. When Lake wins the game, her points go from 125 to 136, which is only an 11-point increase, while Jesse, who lost, went from 189 to 212 points, which is a 23-point increase. I have no clue why they made this scoring so unnecessarily difficult to follow. I've always been a little confused as to why Jesse's number goes down after stating he'll help Lake escape the train. Yes, it's a nice thing to do, but we already knew Jesse was nice. His problem is doing what others want over acting on his own judgment. Is it because he is actively going against what the Flex, but more broadly the train, wants him to do? If anything, he is still pleasing others because he is doing this to make Lake happy.
So who cares if they give passengers more tickets?
Jesse calls them tickets, but throughout the episode they have solely been referred to as points. Wonder if this was a writing mistake or not. The Spell Wizards return in physical form, also returning from the short titled The Tiny Wizard Car. I'm just gonna leave this here. It's the introduction of Frank, who will return next season more prominently.
If you placed a bet in their favor, then... I'm being told that no one bet that they would win.
Although it's funny no one would bet Lake and Jesse would win, statistically it would be dumb not to bet in their favor, as it is 2 against 1. Maybe they have Toph's logic going on with Lake being a denizen and all.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't count you. You know, no bending and all. I can still fight!
When Grace reveals herself and opens the door to let in the other Apex kids, the handles on the other side of the door are missing. We also find out next episode that the Apex uses harpoon packs to reverse the cars. So why did they force Grace to play these silly carnival games just to open the door if they could have used their harpoon packs to all come through the front entrance? Grace sometimes slips into an English accent.
We do what we have to survive.
It's probably due to Grace having a British mother, with her voice actor Kirby Howe Baptiste also being British herself, although this never really occurs in Season 3. Grace greets everyone under her by tracing the sound wave on their face with her fingers. We see this return next episode with Simon, and briefly next season in the first episode. And thus, Wheeling was born. I'm sure this won't come back later in an emotionally damaging way. Just as a general reminder as we circle back to the mall car, I pointed out many details that relate to this car in my video on Season 3, so I won't be restating what I've already said there, just to avoid boring you. Of course, they are always there if you want to see those thoughts. Entering the mall car, we see stores for Urban Sombreros and what looks to say Replica Club. Later we see a store called Sunglass Dojo, as well as Soggy Donut, which is a play on Dunkin' Donuts. We also see Doggenhaus, which is a reference to Haagen-Dazs. You think the ice cream parlor gives Grace some PTSD? The girl who is spray painting Apex on the wall, also known as the kid I hate, is riding one of those mechanical kiddie rides you'd see in malls such as this. The A in the word Apex also uses their sound wave symbol, so too does the sign for the store Old Gravy.
We took over this car. Now it belongs to the Apex. Cool name, huh?
You know, Grace, the name becomes less cool when you have to say it's cool. Hey, Alan Dracula, look, it's another... You know what? Never mind. Grace is a pretty bad friend for raiding the carnival and not telling Simon she saw the cat when they met up later. I'm sure Simon would want to know about it. Maybe she was worried if he told him he would spiral. Grace and Simon explained that from their perspective, Amelia was the original conductor since she ruled over the train when they first boarded until she was usurped by 1-1. Because 1-1 wants passengers to improve and leave the train, Grace and Simon interpret this as him trying to force them off what they believe is their rightful train. Of course, we as the audience in the full story, making the Apex's beliefs a form of dramatic irony for the viewer. Grace's number consistently changes throughout this episode. This moment is probably the most egregious point, however, as it now takes up her entire arm when usually it is only 4 rows. With Simon stating a new car dropped a few cars ahead, it proves that when a new car is made, they aren't just sent straight to the back of the train. They can be placed anywhere along the line, and the other cars move to fit it. I love this little detail of Grace using Lake's blow-up as a distraction to get physically closer to Jesse, only then for Jesse to unintentionally move away from her, which makes her have to once again come back to his side.
Mistakes happen. We're all human.
Nice to think that Jesse thinks of Lake as a human. We know who doesn't think this, though. What in the Attack on Titan?
she's not a passenger.
Exactly. She's a null.
A what?
Null? It means nothing. Not even a zero.
According to Google, null means having no value, effect, or binding force. So when Grace refers to all of the train's denizens as nulls, she's saying that they're so insignificant that they mean nothing at all. Less than that even, as Grace puts it. Honestly, when you think about it deeper, it makes the term feel 5 times worse. Also, in this one shot, Grace's number wraps around her thumb, when in actuality the number should never go beyond the arm. It's a prime example of the number issues this episode has sometimes. Grace says the line,
I got it from a book. I read it in a book.
twice in this episode, which implies that she actually reads books, at least enough to learn and steal the words null and apex. But in the next season, Simon complains that Grace never made it past the foreword of his book. I guess Simon is just a terrible writer, because it's not like Grace doesn't enjoy reading. Judging by the cover of his book, I can't say I'm surprised. An Apex kid tells Grace that they found a denizen, but they don't know if it's dangerous. Then when the scene switches and we return to Grace and Jesse arriving at the denizen, Grace asks if it's dangerous, which you should already know that they don't know. Here, I'll play the clips back to back.
We found a null. Don't know if it's dangerous.
Is it dangerous?
I'm surprised Alan Dracula doesn't defend himself when being attacked by the Apex kids. He could drop the girl through his body or sneeze on the other kid. Every other time someone tries to harm him, he acts in self-defense. Just by being on this mission with Grace, Jesse's number jumps from 4 to 16. Now, after barely touching the cube and giving in to Grace's demands, his number goes to 22, already more than 2/3 of what it started at. The award for worst haircut on the invasion goes to this Apex girl! Congratulations!
We're going home. We're free!
Train said, "Wanna bet?" Ain't we lucky the harpoon pack just conveniently fell off Jesse's body right before he left the train? The door fully closes and yet it still drops out of thin air. It's a little odd that the last episode ends with the flex above Lake about to sand her, and yet this episode starts with them standing over her like everything is normal. Guess even they had to give her some time to breathe.
We just lost another human, Simon. Have some respect.
Despite Grace saying they lost another human, both her and Simon know full well that Jesse is off the train. They just view it as a bad thing. Next season, when Hazel asks them what happens to passengers, they tell her no one knows. This is to manipulate her to be on their side against 1-1. You know, the Flex sure do miss a lot in this show. The sunglass stand Lake uses to block the door is actually from the Sunglass Dojo shop, which was seen previously in the background. Alan Dracula really the MVP for standing up to the flex and blocking them from reaching Lake. Another animation mistake can be seen here. When Lake is running from the flex atop the train, you can already see the handcuffs around her wrist, which will soon be placed by Mace. Of course this hasn't happened yet though. Well, there goes the buddy system. If this was PG-13, she would have 100% just thrown Steve off the train. I mean, we get something arguably worse later this episode. The song Mace sings is based off the real-world song titled I Saw 3 Ships. Would Lake be able to get back on the train even if she made it back? I mean, we see Tulip do in the first episode, but in that scenario the train is stopped. Here it is zooming down the tracks. This isn't a detail many people bring up, but the fact we see clouds in the wasteland could be an indicator that the wasteland is still somehow on Earth, either in an alternate dimension or in the future possibly. It's interesting that the train has some sort of gravitational force that pulls the denizens back to the machine, almost as if there's an invisible leash tugging on them. It makes me wonder if passengers have the same restrictions. However, I don't believe so, as the only thing that stopped Tulip originally was the mud. Stopping the passengers could be what the boots were for, but I'll go into that more in depth in my book 4 analysis. The Gomes going after the group here tells us that they aren't just hostile to passengers, but instead all creatures, as all 3 here are denizens of the train. Elsewhere in the series, we see them mostly only attack passengers and suck their souls out.
What did you think would happen if you were allowed through the exit? You just go out into the world with your metal skin and what?
I hate to say it, but Mace brings up a good point about how Lake couldn't realistically live outside the train. The show ultimately chooses not to dwell on this issue since Lake is allowed to leave the train and those complications are never fully addressed. Still, the fact that the show brings it up shows an awareness of the difficult questions surrounding her existence.
Did you ever wonder why that car was there? Your prime couldn't have gotten out of the car unless you switched. So, did the train make the car so you could get out?
Mace is really out here asking some of the show's most existential questions. This is one of the most fascinating ideas the show brings up, as he wonders whether the train creates cars specifically for passengers, completely at random, or even for the denizens themselves, like Lake, to potentially escape and build lives of their own. It turns the train from simply being a strange setting the characters travel through into something that feels like it almost has a mind of its own, acting with deliberate intention. It also raises the question of whether the train deliberately places certain cars in a passenger's path to create experiences uniquely designed to challenge them and help them grow emotionally. After this, Mace brings up the concept of free will, so we're really diving deep here.
Just another creation of the train to help passengers.
No, I'm a person. I was making my own choices.
And choices lead to lessons. And what were you learning exactly? Do you think you're free? That you escaped? You're stuck on the train now. You're just in another mirror.
He essentially argues that Lake never had free will at all. She was created to help Tulip learn, and by escaping the mirror car, she helped lower Tulip's number, meaning she fulfilled the purpose the train intended her for. Then afterwards, she ends up doing exactly what the train seems to want every denizen to do, accompany a passenger and help lower their number, just like we saw with Atticus last season. In Jessie's case, she succeeds once again, which raises the unsettling possibility that she has simply been carrying out the train's intended purpose all along, with none of her actions being of her own accord. Truly makes us wonder if Lake ever had free will in the first place. Was she always destined to help Tulip and later Jessie, or were those choices genuinely her own? This further raises questions about the denizen's overall purpose. Was Atticus placed on the train solely to help Tulip grow, or was that merely a coincidence? Same with Kez. Does a denizen's life amount to nothing more than serving a passenger's emotional journey? In the same vein, Lake herself does not really learn anything substantial over the course of the season's journey. Despite being the protagonist, Jessie is ultimately the character who experiences the most growth. Yes, Lake becomes more open to forming relationships, but her journey is less about fixing a personal flaw and more about discovering her identity and proving that she deserves a life beyond the role the train assigned to her. Wow, 200 IQ play from Lake now. It's very intuitive of her to use the train's natural gravitational pull to launch herself back towards the train. Full on showing death on screen now, huh? Cartoon Network really got loose with their TV PG rating, I see. Although Lake never really enters any of these cars, her getting back on the train here is probably the furthest down the train we've ever seen a person travel. Like I mentioned in the last video, because most of the series follows connected characters, it makes the train feel like everyone is operating within roughly the same general area. Even in Book 4, while we don't know exactly how far Min and Ryan traveled, the appearance of the Hey-Ho-Woh Rock and the Grape Denizen in the party car, as well as the cat's brief appearance, suggests that they couldn't have been that far from the focal point of the show. All of this kind of places their journey within the same section of the train as the others, so as far as we know, Lake should be at the furthest point we've seen on the train, which makes it even more unfortunate that she never explores any of the surrounding cars. Lake really be out here creating a villain when she forcefully rips this guy from his pod, if he could even make it down from atop the train. Wait, that man's missing his number. Guess he's stuck on the train no matter what. I've been referencing the Infinity Train shorts throughout this video, but here one directly references them.
This is where all the magic happens.
And by magic, I mean numerical algorithmic judgment.
Did one really decide to take himself to an entirely different car just to finish the sentence? Man is dedicated. We see that the tape/number/passenger preparation car, whatever you want to call it, is just a normal car in the middle of the train, which leads me to the thought that this car was made a little while after the invention of the Infinity Train. This would possibly mean that the train originally had a different purpose other than just helping passengers solve their problems. If this car which brings in passengers was always meant to be here, why wouldn't it be placed closer to the engine, as that would be the start of the train?
The tape car is the only car where the universe is projected on the outside.
The robot's out of his mind.
I've always been confused by this line. Does that imply the entirety of the train, along with the wasteland, is just the universe which is being projected from this one car or a central system of sorts? In every other car's circumstance, the universe is truly projected inward, so projecting outward doesn't make much sense unless the wasteland is potentially a fabrication of reality. The fact Lake comments on this fact proves to me that it matters, and I'm surprised it isn't brought up more. I have a theory about the train's creation that I posted on Reddit a while back, in which I attempt to explain why these elements exist, but I could totally turn it into a quick video if anyone's interested. Just let me know in the comments if you want to hear the full theory. Additionally, because this car seems to be the start of passengers' journeys on the train, and from here they are sent away, does that mean this car acts as a sort of roadblock stopping any passengers from going further up the train, presumably to the engine eventually? They suspiciously and frustratingly hide the door from us, so I'm not sure if passengers would be able to continue through the train if they hit this car. Speaking of entrances, the same opening used to enter the car with the pods is also the way the pods exit. Does that mean these openings are the only way in and out of the car? This film reel coming out of a passenger's head returns next season with Grace when exiting her tape. This makes sense as the cat says that the machine specifically extracts the tape of her memories, which is exactly what is happening here. We know from the last season that Tulip boards the train in November 2019 and gets off 5 months later in 2020. This current season begins a couple of months after that based on Steve's line about tracking Lake for a couple months, which would add roughly 2 or at most 3 more months. That places this season sometime around the summer of 2020. Well, we see the passenger Danny Nugget arrive on the train and get his number, but there's a calendar behind him in one quick shot. I looked at the 2020 calendar, and the only month that fits the schedule of the week starting on the 17th is the month of May. Meaning we went through all of this to know if this man had some sort of important event on the 21st of May in 2020. Why did I do this all for no reason? Because we're overanalyzing. Lake really out here trying to trap little girls on trains for eternity. Guess she sort of felt remorseful.
Sorry, I need this more than you.
Didn't feel any remorse for the old man, though.
Please return to your pod.
Come on, Ellen Dracula. Get comfortable.
Simply judging by what the series presents to us, it seems as though adults are given higher numbers than children, at least for the most part. We see a lot of times throughout the show passengers who are under 18 be given numbers around or below the 100 mark when boarding, while adult passengers like the two we see here along with Amelia are given much higher numbers. And this would make sense as they have lived longer lives and thus have more they need to work through than most children. Though I do wonder what the smallest problem someone would have to have for the train to pick them up, as we see Jesse boarding the train with his number at 31, with a pretty easy problem to solve. So would the train ever pick up someone with a number of 1? What would a problem like that even be? Chewing with your mouth open? Leaving the toilet seat up? Eating raw onions? Lake out here inventing the donut holder V2. We can see that the mask of the steward is damaged after Atticus rammed straight through it at the end of season 1. One probably had to glue it back together because it is the only steward left after Amelia blew them all up.
I'd appreciate it if you'd stop breaking everything.
Unless you want me to start writing your obituary.
This obituary comment from 1-1 comes from episode 3 of the first season when 1-1 says,
"Looks like I'll have to start writing his obituary."
Anyone else knows episode 9s of Infinity Train loved their tapes? Season 1, Amelia's tape. Season 2, we see how tapes are made, and the episode is literally called The Tape Car. Season 3, Grace's tape. Oh, Season 4, the many disappointments you bring by breaking trends. Lake must have the flex level of accuracy when attempting to attack 1-1. At least we saw last episode that she can actually land her attacks.
What was your passenger's name?
Jesse. His name is Jesse.
Here we go.
1-1 asks Lake for Jesse's name, but the screen he's using doesn't even show any names. Yet he somehow knows exactly who Jesse is and immediately finds his information. He's just playing with her at this point. After taping Jesse, his new tape has the number 2 on it because it is the second tape that belongs to him. Later, 1-1 will state that a tape has never started on the train before, and that's because this new tape starts right from where the last one left off, which would be when Jesse entered the train for the first time. So this new second tape begins when he first started his journey on the train and continues up to the present moment. With this statement also comes the implication that no one has boarded the train, got an exit, then been brought back on the train later in life. This might mean that even if you regress in your problem, that the train doesn't care enough to try and fix you again. What's even more interesting about this fact is that Owen Dennis has teased a concept for an unreleased future book, which would have followed someone who had been on the train, gotten off, but then been forced to come back on to fix their problem again. So we know a passenger returning to the train wasn't off the table. After 10 episodes, we finally get to hear the ending of 1-1's liability waiver.
Conscapion ship. Constipation.
Hey, come back! That didn't explain anything!
The part about loss of personal property is interesting, as we know that before Amelia took over, one took everyone's belongings and put the passengers in uniforms. A question we don't have answered is if passengers got their stuff back if they managed to escape. There was originally meant to be more scenes included in Jesse's tape which would have depicted his time on the swim team as well as when the train picked him up. However, we know for a fact that the train picked him up right after the incident with his brother, as for one, Jesse states he didn't get to talk to Nate before boarding, but Owen Dennis also released promotional art before the season aired of Jesse sitting atop a hill right before the train arrived.
Oh, look! You've got co-star billing now.
But you'll probably be paid less because Hollywood breeds gender inequality.
This joke is highly underrated. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Nate is wearing a cast after the event at the hill. Google tells me a broken arm takes around 6 weeks to fully heal, which means Jesse was probably on the train for no later than a month and a half.
Yeah. We don't need to hear it. We just watch the high-def version.
What a great meta joke from 1-1. He's really killing it with the one-liners this episode. Yes, as always, pun intended. So did Jesse basically summon the train here? If so, how? Because by all accounts, it doesn't make much sense that he just wanted the train to appear, so it did. We also know it appeared right then because that's when the tape ends.
Waking a passenger is a whole process. It involves robots and coding and juice boxes and...
In case you couldn't catch what they were both saying.
Jesse! I thought you were gone, and I caught the flesh, and I jumped in a pie and found you in a head farm, and I watched your memories. Oh, sorry about that. I'm sorry about you again.
The steward's mask is shown as not being broken for a moment.
Hey!
Guess he was right about his body being squishy.
I am pretty squishy.
I love how Jesse does not believe in Lake's crazy plan at all. Is it bad of me to sort of wish they didn't show both exit doors opening? I feel as though if it were just one door, the anxious feeling would still be there of whether she could actually go through this door finally, whereas in its current version there is almost no question. However, it would have caused an issue when we get to book 4, so maybe it's fine. Steve has the sander attached to his arm, but when we see his arm again, the sander is gone. So, you think we'll see Steve return another book, or... This moment where Alan Dracula saves Lake is actually the first time in the entire season that he intentionally uses his powers to help the group. The creators made a deliberate choice to never have him purposefully assist anyone until the final moment where they truly needed him. It makes the audience wonder why he didn't help more before. The same thing happens when Alan Dracula suddenly blasts off into the sky. It reveals that he could fly this whole time, which only makes you question even more why he never uses that ability earlier. Crazy lens flare, by the way. I question how the cuffs came off Lake's hand here. Just because you blow up Steve does not mean the cuffs will come off her hand. Those two things are not connected in any way. In a metaphorical sense, however, it symbolizes Lake no longer being tied to the train anymore and being free from that and the flex for good. This shot of the clouds reflects the same visual from the wasteland when Mace was looking up at the sky. This also further insinuates that the train could exist in a version of the real world. Although everyone watching almost certainly knows this, Lake names herself after the first reflective surface she sees where she no longer has to feel afraid of the flex, being a lake. Hold on a minute. You were telling me Lake gets to get off the train and keep her reflection? Wow, Tulip really got the short end of the stick. Yeah, you better enjoy that reflection. Tulip doesn't get one because of you. Every time you look in the mirror to brush your teeth, just think of Tulip and her stinking onion breath. Before we end this breakdown, I would like to point out a couple of overarching details about the season that I couldn't find anywhere to fit them in naturally. First off, we find out last season that denizens are linked to the orbs which control if they exist or not, so that makes me wonder if Lake has an orb, being a denizen of a passenger and all. If so, it would most certainly be attached to their chrome car. However, would that mean every reflection that's ever existed needs an orb? Do they get an orb if the reflection only exists in their real world attached to their prime? It also has me question if a denizen of any kind leaves their car, are they still connected to their orb? So if an orb was taken out of their car from however far away, even if they are 1 million cars out on the train, would they still disappear from existence? Furthermore, is Lake still connected to an orb even after leaving the train, or is she officially free now with no strings attached? These are the real questions we need answered, Owen Dennis. One thing that's incredibly well thought out about this season is that the writers had to design car concepts with almost no reflective surfaces. Since Lake is constantly being hunted through reflections, the team had to work around strict limitations that the previous and future seasons didn't really have to consider. That meant avoiding obvious reflective materials like mirrors, glass, metal, and even water. The family tree car, for example, is almost entirely natural, eliminating reflective surfaces altogether. Then you have the map car, which is especially clever because everything initially appears to be made of paper and other map materials, only for the environment to become reflective after the map activates like with the water, which I bet required some deep thinking about what car concept would allow for this transition at the end of the episode. The Parasite car episode is also impressive because I had to juggle 3 separate car concepts, all while still avoiding reflections like with flowers, food pyramids, and fake glasses. This impressive design philosophy continues throughout the entire season, but I thought it was worth bringing up. I honestly think these restrictions pushed the team to come up with even stronger and more inventive concepts than the previous season, while also showing just how skilled they were at crafting a phenomenal story despite these limitations. And that's it. Thank you all for joining me as we broke down Infinity Train Season 2. If you're at this point in the video and haven't already, consider hitting the like button. It really helps with engagement, which I desperately need. Also consider subscribing. Next up we have the last video in the Overanalyzing series. Unless they greenlight Infinity Train Season 5, do it HBO Max, I dare you. But I also have a few other fun ideas to throw out if interest is there. Wanting more Infinity Train content?
That greedy little piglet is thirsty for more.
You know the drill by now. There are 2 other videos in the series currently, as well as a trailer I made for the entire show. Share with your friends. Get them invested in a canceled show you can't find anywhere online that ends without any major satisfying conclusion. I'm sure they'd love you for that. I also have a TikTok page where I post high quality, top tier, never before seen edits on this exact show. And as always, if you ended up catching something in this second season that I didn't, drop it in the comments below. I and I'm sure many others would love to hear more facts about this season. With that, I'm hopping off the train with Lake and Jesse. Hope to see you in the next one. Oh, and if you're watching these videos in season order as opposed to release order, then I'm sorry in advance for how my voice sounds in the next video. Swear the content's still good though.